So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit your cryptocurrency, business, real estate, or other highly appreciated asset. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, and wealth minds, and sometimes people who help you build brands in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we get complex tax deferral strategies, simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Florida, and he started his first business at the age of 12, selling used golf balls. From there, he went on to real estate investing and technology startup, which he sold years later. For the past decade, he has been an executive in the aerospace industry. During his time in corporate America, he stayed active with his side hustles, which mainly consisted of conference speaking and business coaching. Please welcome to the show with me, Alex Sanfilippo. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hey, Brett, I'm doing really great. First off, thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate it. You can talk fast, man. I love that. Straight to the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, glad to have you on the show. Excited to get going here. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, sure thing. So I've been a businessman my entire life. I should say a business kid at one point, because you alluded to me selling used golf balls as a kid. It's funny, I'm not going to get into that full story, but just so y'all know, when I was a kid, I wasn't really great at sports. I wasn't good at school, and I wasn't good at video games, which is like a really awkward place for a 10 to 12-year-old kid to be, right? But I realized really quick, the first time I held a golf ball and a golfer asked if he could buy it from me, that I actually really liked business. I didn't necessarily care about the money, but I cared about the art of making something work. So yes, from between the ages of 10 to 12, I was selling used golf balls with other friends in the neighborhood and things like that. And that kind of just gave me this mind of, man, I really like business. So I moved into multiple things throughout my career. And maybe we'll fill in some of those gaps today, maybe not. But the important point is that I just realized at a young age, I love being an entrepreneur. I love helping people build businesses and create wealth for themselves through those avenues. And I've done that in many different ways over my life. And today where I'm at is I'm actually full-time in the podcasting world. So Brett, I know you can appreciate podcasting, of course. And I thoroughly enjoy serving people in podcasting, both with my show, but also with my startup as well, that's facing and helping people that have their own shows as well. So something I just really love doing.
Amazing, Alex. And we're going to be diving into creating your brand and leveling up your online brand here with Alex in a minute, the top secrets to that. By the way, if you're curious about learning and getting connected with Alex right now, you can go to creatingabrand.com. That's creatingabrand.com. But before we go there, Alex, I believe we've all been given certain gifts, and the gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them superpowers. Some people call them strengths. I want you to go back to your high school days, and I want you to think about that. One or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how do those help how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, I love this question. First off, I'm going to mention that for me personally, I feel like my gifts came from God. I believe I was born with them, and I've done my best to be able to grow in those things. And the first of which I'll mention is strategy. I'm really great at getting myself in front of a whiteboard or in front of a group of people and being able to really strategize something and come up with a system and a plan for execution. And that's probably been my number one thing. The second thing I'll mention is I'm just a curious individual. I've devoted myself to being a lifelong learner. So learning, I'd say, is the other really natural God-given talent that I have, is I'm able to really listen, be that student, and implement really fast as I'm learning. And that's always been a skill of mine. Didn't translate well in school, but after school, I've really been able to further develop that skill in business and in my personal life as well.
Love it. Coming up with systems and strategy. And then the second one you said, I missed it.
Learning. Yeah.
Learning. It's a lifetime learner. Be willing to learn and execute things. Cool. All right. So now let's dive in right into the number one secret to creating a brand or leveling up your brand. Go.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that people can tell you about this. A lot of people are, first off, my company's called Creating a Brand. So people assume that I'm going to get into like the logos, the copy, like all the design elements, right? Like that's usually the assumption, Brett, when people want to talk to me about this stuff. And they're like, okay, I need all those things to really develop a great brand. But the truth is, it really starts with you as an individual. And it starts with you really knowing who you are and who you serve. Now, what I mean by that is it's going to take the self-reflection. First off, like, what am I good at? What is it that I'm doing? So for me, you had me mention those gifts that I have naturally, the things that I'm good at. So I'm good at strategy and I'm good at learning. Can I share those things? Can I also teach people these things? So can I teach people how to be more strategic with their businesses? Can I teach people how to learn better? And that's exactly what I decided to do when I launched my podcast. And as I launched it, I decided, you know what, I'm going to give back and help and serve. And the point of all this is, now that I'm using my skills to help somebody else, is there a way to monetize that as well, right? Like that's how you build a business around, is the ability to actually monetize that thing. And doing that, I believe, is really, it can be difficult, but it's not as hard as people think. Because again, everyone goes to like the logo, the brand behind it. But the truth is, I care about these people in the podcasting space. That's where I feel God has placed me. So I'm going to do my best to solve problems that they have. And I think if there's ever anything that really is like the art of creating a brand, the whole act of it is solving problems for the people that you care about instead of just trying to come up with ideas. And that's what many of us get stuck doing.
Would you say we're not in the business of podcasting or building brands or doing logos and designs, but we're in the business of solving problems? Is that a fair summary?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Excellent. And then using those gifts in that particular area where you have passion in to go do that. I think that's a key thing to always know. I think that I wonder what you think about this. I feel like the fulfillment formula. I've compiled this from many smart leaders, but it's your unique gift that you've been given, right? Plus, or times is actually a better part of this, times the amount of energy and effort that you use to maximize that gift, times the amount of people you're impacting. And then the bigger overall view of this is the bigger vision. Like for me, it's my faith, and that we've been given these gifts, again, to be a blessing to others, that there's a bigger purpose for these things, right? And that equals fulfillment. And by the way, you can apply that to business. You can also apply it to your marriage. Also apply it to your being a parent, right? We've all been given these certain gifts. So how are we maximize the potential? How are we impacting others? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that you've really got that point right. I think that if people could understand that and like actually learn how to apply it to their lives, like there'd be a lot more happy people around probably, because I think a lot of us, we just struggle with that whole idea. What you just said is something that's I've even found to be far easier said than done, right? Like understanding and have that level of self-reflection and being able to serve others. Like it sounds easy, but the culture that many of us live in, for me being in the United States, you being in the United States as well, it's one of those things where like our culture is not designed that way at all. So it becomes very difficult, and you even have to be somewhat counterculture to implement these things. And I just refer to that as living a life that's proactive instead of reactive. If we're constantly reacting to everything that's happening, we're just going to live in this flow that's opposite of what you just shared. But if we're proactive and going against the grain, we can get into a more fulfilled life. But I mean, I completely agree with what you said. It's definitely a lot of work to get there, though.
Yep, 100%. So let's talk about that now. So what's step number 2? So after you establish, who you are and establish the strengths you've been given and who you're serving, what would be that next secret to creating a brand or leveling up your brand?
Yeah. So the next thing is, and I kind of began this conversation here. So it's really discovering the problem that you can solve. So again, like finding the people that you care about, the people that you want to serve, what problem are you actually solving for them? And I said this earlier, but it's not just coming up with ideas, because I think so many of us as entrepreneurs, myself included, I have a ton of ideas, and most of them are really, really bad ideas. And there's some that are good ideas, but they don't necessarily work the way I want them to. And it's like, the entrepreneur, like I'm one of them, where you've just failed 100 times before you make any successes along the way. But I found that it's a much faster path to success when, instead of just trying to come up with the ideas, you say, okay, people that I care about, that I'm designed to serve, what are you struggling with? And when you can find out what they're struggling with and you're catching a trend among multiple people, you can build a solution off of that problem. So let your idea come out of the solution process, where you build something and say, you know what? Okay, this is what you're struggling with. Here's a solution for you. Does this work? Does this make your life better? Does this make your life easier? And when you're doing that, again, instead of just trusting your own ideas, you can build a business, you can build a brand just so much faster. And I find it to be more fulfilling along the way.
Beautiful. So yeah, discovering a problem that you can solve, and then really clarifying who are you designed to serve, right? Again, back to those unique gifts. Okay, great. So that's number 2. So then what's the next step?
Yeah. So the next step, I think this is, again, where we all get it wrong. This is where like the logo comes in, like, okay, I found the problem I'm going to solve. And first off, Brad, I got to say, I love the format of your podcast. Like being on this is so cool. I was listening to one you did with Tyler McBroom, I think it was. And you keep things moving so fast. And sorry, it's a little side note there. You can edit that later if you want.
But that. Thanks for the plug, brother.
Yeah, I really admire what you're doing. Everyone should go listen to that episode. It was about cash flow and growing your business. And I think he was a CPA. But anyway, back on track. This is like the point where everyone hits and they're like, okay, I need the logo, I need the copy, I need to build a software. Like I need to like have a whole development team. But the truth is you don't need all those things. When you're trying to solve somebody's problem, don't overcomplicate it. Don't muddy the waters. At the end of the day, again, going back to the problem, all that you need to do is offer a solution to it. And for me, I always think MVP, which stands for minimal viable product, which means you can test it. Like some of the projects I've launched that have been really successful, I literally launched them with no text, no logo, just does this work? And for me, I'm in the online space, so some of it's been software, but other things I've done manually and just been like, hey, here's what you need and here's the person you need. Let me see if I can connect them together via phone, via email, via text, whatever it might be. So making those connections is around where my business has been, but trying it completely manual just to see if it even works, to test the idea. And then you can worry about the other things later. But the truth is, if you haven't validated that, you know what, this truly is a problem and this is the solution to it, then you're making a big mistake by trying to build some brand before that. And I've seen companies, and you've seen it too, people that raise venture capital and things like that literally waste millions of dollars on something that's never going to help or serve anyone because they didn't quite get it right and they didn't test it first. So for me, I just call it starting ugly. Like you start ugly and you just try it and you get better and better over time. You can't leave it there, but you start ugly and just see what happens with it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the 80-20 principle applies here, right? 80% perspiration and 20% inspiration, right? I think sometimes it's either startups or new ideas and new ventures or whatever. We think it's got to be this 80% inspiration and only 20% perspiration. We actually got to flip that, right? And in fact, if you have the perfect plan, you plan for too long, right? You've got to just plan, and there's a law of diminishing returns, right? Where at a certain point, if you're planning and analyzing, and you keep doing that without taking action, eventually, not only does your plan not get any better, but it actually starts to diminish because you start overthinking it. So I can't agree with you more. Get out there and have an idea, get the minimal viable product available, and then launch. And by the way, that's what I did with my podcast. That's what I did with my YouTube channel. And was it bad in the beginning? Yeah, it's kind of bad, right? Was it awkward? Was I scared and like didn't want to do this? No, I didn't want to do this, right? But was it what my audience and the people that I was serving were calling for? Yeah, it was. So did I need to get out of my own way? I absolutely did. And now am I better? Sure, right? But it's taking me time. So any thoughts on that and getting out of your own way, Alex?
Yeah, this is a good point. I'm like you. I would never go back and listen to my first like 10 episodes. I mean, if somebody wants to, I guess go for it, but don't tell me what you think. You know, like get past that point. But yeah, I think that many of us, we get in our own way because at this point in the game that we're talking about, we feel a little bit like we're being an imposter, or it's such unknown space even for us that we're like not sure that we're qualified, right? Like we're just like, okay, is this real? Like, what am I doing? And I've never met anyone who doesn't feel that way. As a matter of fact, I was actually recently talking with Dean Graziosi. I had a conversation with him, which was really cool. And there was another person there who asked, they said, hey, do you ever get nervous about what you're doing? Or like, do you ever struggle with anything like when you're in front of, like he was just recently in front of 750,000 people, like a live event that he did, which is insane. And so people were like, do you ever struggle? And he said that, yes, every time I do this, I still struggle with imposter syndrome. I still feel like I'm not necessarily the best person in the world to talk about it because I don't know all the answers. We all struggle with that. But the thing is, this was said really well by a friend of mine, Jeff Goins. And so I didn't say this. This is kind of funny. But the way he put it, he said that he actually, when he was going to Boy Scouts, that someone said, if you see a bear in the woods and everyone's running away from it, you don't have to be the fastest person there. You just can't be the slowest. And I think it's true when we come to teaching other people and like actually serving somebody else. If you got one hand in front of them, you can pull them up, then you owe it to them and to yourself to actually get out there and try this and overcome the fear of that you might fail or you might not be the best person for it. If you can serve that one person, then you have to have the mindset that what I'm doing is totally worth it.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I call it getting out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course, we're all nervous and we're all, I think, public speaking is the number one fear, or top fear. It's crazy, but I'm going to give some practical tips for our listeners here right now. So what I did is I started hiring coaches, right? And like, I don't know if you grew up playing sports or anything else, or you're in the military and you got drill sergeants or coaches screaming at you or yelling at you. Not that these coaches online are screaming at you or all that stuff, but they are motivating and they are inspiring and they are holding you accountable, and they're doing it in a group setting. So I took the one funnel away challenge. Like, I had never heard of Russell Brunson. I mean, I kind of had seen some ads and stuff. Did I jump on this thing for 30 days? And I'm telling you, I thought I knew how to sell, Alex. You know, I sell commercial real estate. You know, I obviously sell the Deferred Sales Trust, and we help people with, you know, deferring capital gains tax. I didn't know how to sell, right? Once I took that 30 day, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I do the same thing.
I thought I knew how to sell, right? And I guess sell is probably not the best word, except for consult or tell stories. Really overcoming false beliefs, right? By using stories rather than just trying to go with logic, right? Which is just so fascinating. So I'm curious on your journey, and if you've ever even experienced what Russell's stuff, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I did the same thing you did, and I said the same thing. I came from a sales background for a while. Like I mentioned, I have like a kind of vast business experience. For many years, I was a salesperson, then a sales director. And then I went through that, and I was like, cool, I know nothing about selling anything. Like, it was really funny.
Yeah, it is. So, but it's the point is, to all of that is hire that coach, right? It's okay if you don't know. We all started somewhere else, but it's also not great to just stay in that and feel like you got to just 100% take that load on your back, right? Literally jump into these 30-day challenges, right? Same thing with my podcast, right? It took me forever, and then I jumped on a podcast. A little plug for Jamie Akinson. He's got a podcast Profit Lab, and he's amazing, right? And what he does, and he specializes in the podcast and launching and getting that going. And by doing those things, all of a sudden, guess what? If you don't feel alone. Second, you got someone who's just a guide, like Alex was saying. They're like maybe one step ahead of you, or maybe even 10 steps, but they're just going to help pull you up a little bit. There's power in community, and there's power in collaboration, and there's power in just having somebody just a few steps ahead of you. So hire that coach, take that challenge, do that thing. You'll be glad that you did. Alex, that being said, anything else to add on creating a brand that you want to touch on, and or talk about your services? Let's plug a little bit of that. Like, if someone wants to connect with you and be like, hey, Alex, what can I expect? What would that look like? You know, give us a plug for that.
Yeah, real quick. I'm going to comment back on that thing to kind of wrap this thing up real quick. First off, there's a proverb that says if you're waging war, obtain guidance. And I feel like all of us, in some extent, if you're looking to disrupt a market or change something even in your own life, you're waging war. Like, get that guidance. It's so important. I'm by no means a self-made entrepreneur or anything like that. Like, I am here because of the people that have helped me get here, that are years ahead of me, that I consistently seek counsel from, that I seek guidance from any chance I get. So to Brett's point there, make sure that you're always seeking that counsel, get in a mastermind, find somebody who can help you and add value to their lives as well. And to kind of tie up this whole, like, this art of creating a brand, if you will, like, this is where the branding comes in for me. It's always a personal brand. So it's always us before the actual brand. And I just call this doing things that don't scale. Now, let's say you've solved the problem for somebody, right? You've validated it. You went through MVP status, so just minimum viable product. It's really helping and serving people. Now, doing things that don't scale means talking to the people that are using it to re-qualify the fact of, am I really solving the problem? Did this cause another problem? Get to know those people, get on calls with them. Again, there is no way to scale this. Like, you can't talk to 1,000 people a day, but especially in the early years of it or the early days of it, you want to do your best to get on calls with people to really talk to them. And this is what makes people feel like, wow, I'm part of the solution that Brett or Alex is making. I'm actually part of this. I'm helping make this thing better, not just for me, but for other people. And that's when you start building that personal brand around you, because now people have loyalty, because they're like, I love this solution because it helped me. Let's go out there and get it to other people. So with my latest company, I have never done any marketing or anything like that, or really anything to really get the word out there. And we have more than 10,000 people using our platform. And it's from organic growth and me being willing every day, or every other day, let's say, to get on calls with people to just see, hey, what can we do to make it better? Is this still solving your problem? What could it do to solve more problems for you? Or like, what else are you looking for, right? By doing these things, it's really helped us establish a strong brand in the eyes of our community and the people that are using our products. So I think that's kind of how I tie this whole thing together. It all starts with that personal brand is how you really build it out.
Beautiful. So now plug your stuff. What do you provide? What does it look like?
Yeah, sure. So first off, again, thank you so much for having me here. So for me personally, my podcast is called Creating a Brand. It really helps early stage entrepreneurs make that first or next step in their business the right one. And I do that by bringing on some really great names, a lot of them being authors, to talk about very specific topics and give us some steps on that. So that podcast is Creating a Brand. super important to me, passion project. And then out of that, I launched what's called Podmatch. So podmatch.com is a service that I provide that basically think online dating, but for podcast guests and hosts be able to meet. It automatically matches the two of them together. It's how guests can find hosts can find guests type of thing. We have an algorithm that runs through all that. And that's the main product I'm doing. And I found that by launching my podcast and realizing, you know what, podcasters need guests because I'm struggling with it too. And that's how we're able to make that happen.
By the way, I'm a part of Podmatch, and I love Podmatch.
Yeah.
I've got some great guests like Alex on the show, and it's a phenomenal service. So check out Podmatch. Excellent, Alex. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one gold nugget you make sure you tell yourself to do?
Yeah, so to get out of my own way, you kind of said that earlier, so I hate that you use that, but really, I was just stuck in my thoughts. I talked about like my natural ability being strategy, and I was just always thinking strategy, but no implementation. And I was just being a dreamer, thinking about these perfect systems. The truth is, like, Alex just needed to get out of his way and take some action.
Beautiful. Second question, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Yeah, so the number one, I have to give two if that's okay. The first one is the book of Proverbs, which is in the Bible. Whatever day of the month it is, read that chapter of that book, and I promise you, whether you're a Christian or not, it will change your life. Some of the best wisdom that you can ever find is in that book. Outside of that, I've not given the Bible away a whole lot, but I always recommend it. The book I've given out the most is actually called Indistractable by a friend of mine named Nir Eyal. And he talks about the art of actually not being able to be distracted. And we live in a very distracted world, like disruptions everywhere. And he talks about how you can really live above that. And it's been super helpful for me to get rid of social media and like have times for all that stuff. So very helpful book, especially for today's world.
Love it. Question 3, what's the one leadership theme or quote that you strive to live by?
Yeah, so a true leader is one that knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. It's by John C. Maxwell. A true leader is one that knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And for me, it just means that like I have to constantly be learning that way. So always trying to find it. And am I actually living that out? And then am I showing others, bringing them along? So not trying to be the person that's capitalizing on everything, but bring others to the success and leadership that I've been able to find in my own life.
Beautiful. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm really curious about app development. I've never done an app before, and I know I'm probably a little late to the game, but I'm realizing there might be some synergies there among what I'm doing. So I'm very curious about how that whole system works, how it's different from web development. I know nothing, but like I said, I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm having a really good time along the way in this process.
Cool. And last question is this: after all your success, helping people out, building their brands, getting out of your own way, all of the neat, amazing stuff you've done so far, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
Yeah, so I have a very meaningful morning and evening routine. And in that, I've built a lot of scripture, a lot of time with God. That's what that's the foundation of my entire life. So it's very important to me. But I make sure that I'm just rereading all the things that I believe and that I'm striving for. And I revisit those on a regular basis. So every morning and night, I'm going through that same motion, same routine. And once a month, I'm going through it really in detail, making sure I still feel the same way. So I'm very intentional about where I'm going in life. And to me, it all boils down to just the 20 minutes in the morning, the 20 minutes at night, the first and last thing that I'm doing that's really been the biggest help for me.
Amazing, Alex. Hey, Alex, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing a bit about your story, sharing some really cool tips and expertise on building a brand. I want to encourage you to keep using the God-given gifts you've been given to think strategy, but also implement and take actions and create systems, helping more people. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, could you remind them one last time where to find you?
Yeah, everything's at creatingabrand.com. You can find all my links there, social media, anything that you're looking for.
Amazing. Alex, thanks for being on the show. And for our listeners, I want to thank for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. We're also streaming live on expertcresecrets.com, and you can find that on YouTube as well. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, to sell your business, cryptocurrency, real estate, is the best way to defer capital gains tax and grow your wealth. Also, it's great to hire and get with someone like Alex so that you can level up your brand and, let's say, increase revenue and get a higher price because you have more revenue. So get with Alex as well. Please rate, review, subscribe. We so appreciate everybody. You go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn about the Deferred Sales Trust, or experttaxsecrets.com to learn how to implement it if you're a business professional. Thanks so everybody. We so appreciate you out there and hope to talk to you.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.